Hello, I'm Melody Pittman, your host of 100 Things West Virginia podcast. You're joining me for episode 12, The Best Eats Around West Virginia, with special guest Angie Richards. Who am I? I'm Melody Pittman. I'm a travel writer, content creator, influencer for the last 10 years over at my site, my main site, which is wherever I may roam blog.com. I'm a freelancer. I write for print and online publications, and I was a resident of West Virginia for 44 years. Angie and I, Angie, a lifelong friend, we met in 6th grade and have been going strong ever since. And we're 55 years old, so do the math, that's quite a long time. We actually wrote a book together last year. It's called 100 Things to Do in West Virginia Before You Die, and it's part of a national book series by Reedy Press out of St. Louis, Missouri. Today, in episode 12, Angie and I are going to discuss the best eats around West Virginia, her opinions and my opinions. We're going to focus on some of our favorite meals and maybe introduce you to some restaurants that you haven't thought of before. Okay, so moving on with episode 12, I'm introducing Angie Richards.
Hello.
So glad you could join me today. How's your day?
I'm having a busy day, but it's a good day. We're
Okay,
finally
well,
having fall weather in West Virginia. We've had a little rain, so it's nice and cool. The leaves are starting to change, so it's gorgeous.
you have your sweaters out?
Not yet.
Sweater season.
I'm going to Stonewall next week for a conference, and it's supposed to be in the 70s and like 50s night. So I'm thinking boots and sweaters next week. I'm already packing in my mind.
And I saw on social media that your parents were at a football game the other night, and I was just thinking, oh, high school football and good hot chocolate.
Yep.
Okay, so we are moving on. We're talking about the best eats around West Virginia with Angie Richards, my co-author, lifelong best friend. We're going to dive into the Thyme Bistro. So the Thyme Bistro is in the 100 Things to Do in West Virginia Before You Die. Angie nominated them, and Angie, tell us why.
Okay, so in Weston, West Virginia, one of the big attractions, of course, is touring the asylum, which is also in the book. And you don't think of Weston as a foodie destination.
Right.
So I was in the area working, and someone suggested Thyme Bistro. And it's a small little restaurant on their main street, but the food is fabulous, and they source locally as much as possible.
Wonderful.
But we were there one night, and their special was the filet with whipped potatoes, and I believe it was the best filet I've ever had.
Wow.
It was just melt in your mouth. It was just perfect. And I just love that you can almost ask them, which farm is, this from or this from. And so I just love little restaurants like that you would not expect such good food from such a small little place
Well, surprisingly, I did a tour of Trans-Allegheny Lunatic Asylum in the winter one year.
Mm-hmm.
This is long before it was a popular tourist destination. This was when you had to call some random number and you just had to know that number. It was before it was purchased and made more a commercialized site. And Thyme Bistro, and we're talking thyme here as the herb, Thyme, was open for lunch. And I went with Joe and Julie, Peyton, a couple other friends, and the food was fantastic. I'm thinking, I don't even know how many years ago that was, but probably close to maybe 18 or so. And even then, it was kind of like a farm to table restaurant, which, in the Midwest is a normal thing, but around the rest of the country, farm to table was still a very novel idea. So I did experience a very good lunch there, but I have not had that filet with whipped potatoes, which sounds amazing.
Right. And I think that the last time I was there, that is their Friday night special. Oh, and okay. People almost have to call ahead because it sells out so quickly.
Wow.
But yes, definitely recommend that little restaurant.
Okay. Then we're going to move on to the Press Room in Shepherdstown, also in our 100 Things to Do in West Virginia Before You Die book. This one had been on my radar for a very long time. And Angie took me up to the Eastern Panhandle for the first time. Well, actually, I'd been to Shepherdstown once before, but never really as a tourist. So she took me there and showed me all these good things. And so we had dinner there. It was just amazing. But Angie, again, picks a steak. And what else do you pick from there?
Seafood.
Oh, okay.
They have, and what's funny is you and I had just taken a cruise that took us up to Prince Edward Island.
Oh, yeah.
And we passed so many little like oyster farms and scallop farms and all these little places where they source all of this fresh seafood. And it was just maybe a couple of weeks after we got back from this cruise that I went to press room because I work in that area a lot. So I went to the press room and they had just gotten a shipment of oysters
Oh,
from
nice.
Prince Edward Island. And
Wonderful.
so it just kind of stuck out in my brain. And I'm looking at, and so they have pictures of Prince Edward Island all over all over the bar area. So I thought, well, that's really special because I had just been there. I had
Right.
seen where these oysters are harvested, and then they were here at the restaurant. That was their
Right.
look. That was their special that night, was the fresh oysters from PEI. So that was pretty neat.
And when you took me, I know we had that. So for me, one of my favorite things in the whole entire world is pate. It can be duck pate, chicken liver pate. I don't care. I love pate. And if you remember, they had that pate appetizer, and I was just so enamored by that appetizer that my pasta dish was good, but I couldn't even focus on it really being good because I'd stuffed myself full of pate. So a good problem. But I
And
do
if
remember,
you think about it, Shepherdstown is a one street, very little town, and you just don't expect that type of food from such a small little restaurant.
right.
And that's why
And it's
I
beautiful.
just like it.
It's a
Yes,
beautiful
it's a
restaurant.
beautiful little town. Yeah.
Yeah, super cute. And I remember they had it seems like they had like 8 different kind of desserts. And I think we tried, I want to say maybe we had a creme brulee, or I had a panna cotta, I think.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Something of that nature. And I think maybe you had a creme brulee, but I know we had a lot of desserts at our table and they all looked absolutely amazing.
Yes, because we had some friends with us, so we were sharing we were sharing
Yes.
everybody. And
Yeah.
also, the press room is one that their menu changes also, just like Time Bistro. Their
Right.
menu changes with the season, so I like that touch also.
Me too.
Yep.
Now we're going to move on to the most well-known address in West Virginia, the Greenbrier Resort, America's resort. And we have different favorite things, but I'm glad that my favorite things made the list, and I got to share that meal with you at one point in time.
Mhm.
So that was awesome. So Angie's pick for dining at the Greenbrier is
Sam Sneed's Tavern
okay.
for dinner. For dinner, that's where I like.
Okay.
Draper's is good for breakfast and lunch to me, but I love the Sam Sneed's Tavern. I think I like the experience of going there because you get on the little bus and it takes you
Right.
out. You kind of you get to see some of the property as you're driving out to the tavern, and you have the whole front of it is windows, so you're overlooking the beautiful golf course, and usually there's deer out there. But their food, filet and whipped potatoes, again, one of my favorite meals. I think that says something about me. Just the way that their presentation, because they don't just put mashed potatoes on your plate. They, of
Right.
course, they have to decorate it. It's just such a pretty plate. Draper's chicken salad is one of my favorites too.
So apparently Angie's the refined one with her real meals, the steaks and the seafood and everything. And I opt for things like cool name sandwiches with weird combinations, pimento cheese dip with fries and things like that.
Yeah, I'm a purist.
Okay, so I have been to Sam Snead's, but I've only been there for lunch, and it's been years and years ago. But Eddie and I, a couple of times at the Green Bar, we had lunch there. At some point in time, I think that was one of the only maybe 2 places you could even eat for lunch.
Yeah.
I'm going to pick Draper's. And while their chicken salad is good, and I wanted to mention to the people who are listening that that Draper's uses a chicken salad recipe from 1945. It's served with almonds. It's just a scoop of chicken salad on a plate, probably a bed of lettuce. It comes with fresh fruit and a popover. So it's really nice because a lot of people have not had a popover. But Angie and I have said this before, no offense. Angie and I can both cook and we both make better chicken salad than that. But for most people, that is a really, really good chicken salad. And we didn't have to make it. So, there's that. But for
And it's
me,
just a beautiful plate with the fresh
oh, yeah,
fruit, the
exactly.
blackberry. Yeah, it's just a it's a beautiful presentation, especially
Yeah,
with the popover.
I think Draper's is just such a great dining experience, just from the china to the ambiance to this, the professional service and all that. It's just like top notch.
Oh yeah,
For
for sure.
me, my favorite thing is that chilled peach soup, and I've been eating it for so long I can't even remember. And I've actually had a few friends to go to the Green Bar in the past couple of months, and I recommended that. They'd never had a chilled soup, not even like gazpacho, but they really loved it. So I'm going to tell
Mhm.
you about that to the listeners. This is a chilled peach soup with almond macaroons, a drizzle of raspberry coulis, and whipped cream. It's like really light and flavorful. It's unlike anything I've ever tried. I've had like a cantaloupe cold soup. If you remember that double-decker bus restaurant that used to be in Charleston on the corner
Mhm.
down on Capitol Street. Do you remember
Yeah.
that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah, so I used to go there and have that chilled cantaloupe soup that was just to die for, but the peach soup is even better. And of course, the Greenbrier does so many things with fresh peaches.
Hmm.
So, yeah, you just got to try that chilled peach soup.
Yep.
All the food they serve at the Greenbrier is amazing. And for me, I just did a post on social this week about probably my very favorite thing about the Greenbrier. We're talking 88 amenities. If you've read 100 Things to Do in West Virginia, you know all those amenities because we listed them all. But for me, the chandeliers, just nothing tops those chandeliers. So,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. It's just an experience just walking through it.
exactly.
And
And if you,
breakfast in the main dining room
oh, yes.
is not to be missed. And the high tea. We could go on and on about
Exactly. We could talk about the Greenbrier for 4 seconds.
it. Yeah.
Okay, so now moving on to the next restaurant. This is my all-time favorite. And poor Angie, she's had to listen to this story for so many years. But I love Indian food. It's my very favorite cuisine, and I've eaten Indian food in more than 20 states, more than 20 countries. And I always come back to Sitar of India in Charleston, on the corner of Summers and I think it's Lee Street. But they just
Yes.
do Indian food better than anywhere that I've ever been. Now, I haven't been to India proper, I haven't been to the country of India, but in the UK, they eat Indian food, Indian curries about every meal of the day. And when I went to Scotland for 12 days, I literally had curry every single day. Nobody does it as good as Sitar of India. Angie, what do you think of Sitar?
I really like it. I like it. And I recently took my family there because they
Okay.
had not been. So after you took me there to give me the someone experienced to say, okay, this is what you order. This is what you don't order. So I took my family and they really liked it. And the owners are so friendly, or one of them is so friendly. He came
Right.
out to our table to, tell us about the food and their family, and he let us kind of experiment with the spice because
Right.
we weren't really sure how spicy we'd want to go with it. But yes, the tiki masala is top notch,
Yes.
delicious.
And if you want to just try Indian food for the first time, you can just go for the lunch buffet and try a little bit of everything. Now, they may not have that exact dish on there. I think they have it a couple times a week. They might have butter chicken or chicken vindaloo or something of that nature. But there's really not anything funky in Indian food. So, like, I think people shy away from it because they think it's going to be hot. And it's not hot. Like you can make it as hot as you want, but just as a general rule, it's not necessarily hot. And they ask you what spice level you want, and it's not just like mild, medium, hot. There's about 9 spice levels. And I personally, while I love everything spicy, I like mine more on the mild side because I like the flavors of the curry itself, and the sauce as opposed to just being hot. I took my aunt. I was so excited. My aunt does not have she hasn't tried foods from all over the world and all this sort of thing. And I took my aunt and she absolutely loved it. And then we've introduced a lot of classmates. We've had like some classmates go to dinner there and they all loved it. So that's exciting. Then I
Yeah.
drug Angie to an Indian restaurant in Budapest. That was fun. Yeah,
We were we the only people in there?
I think we were, but it was good.
It was very good.
Right. Okay, so now we're going to move on to some just additional favorites. And so Angie's got something to say here. Let's talk about Dockside Grill.
Okay. So if you like seafood, again, we love seafood in my family. We used to do a lot of conferences through my work at the Lakeview Resort, and we would hit the Dockside Grill for dinner. That it's right on the lake, on the marina, and they do like the Low Country boil. They do
Oh,
crab legs. They do a little bit of everything. It was really good for seafood if you like seafood.
okay. Is that where you took me for lunch?
No, we went to I believe it was called the Lake House. It was
Okay.
another little place. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. And then let's talk about your next choice because I hear that
Sirianni's.
word a lot. So,
Sirianni's, yeah.
yes.
So they're good they have pasta and pizza, but for me, I love pizza. I could eat pizza every day of the week. And they have a very good pizza, and they're in Davis.
Okay.
So you don't think of Davis as well, actually Davis has some really good restaurants. They
Right.
have they have several in the area, but Sirianni's for me, I have to have pizza when I'm up there. And that's in the Canaan Valley area for anybody listening wanting to know if I'm going skiing or you know, Canaan Valley or Timberline, I
Okay.
suggest Sirianni's in Davis.
Okay. And I've heard a lot of people talk about their pizza there. So it must be really
Mhm.
good. And like I want to branch out for a second when you were talking about Angie and I both grew up in a capital city. And while Charleston, West Virginia is not an enormous city, it's still the capital city. So things are just different there than they are for the most part of the state. And with any capital city in any state in America, not just West Virginia. If you lived in, I lived in, Charleston for years and years and years. And besides maybe going to the Greenbrier or maybe Parkersburg or Huntington or something, I really didn't branch out in West Virginia for probably 35 years. I only traveled out of state to go places. I think that the mentality is when you've lived somewhere like that, everything else is just a smaller town. That's just a fact. It's a smaller town. And you just don't expect to, or back in those days anyway, you didn't expect to go to a small town and just be blown away by some amazing restaurant. Now that's kind of like, it's starting to break down barriers and you're finding this. So I wanted to just mention something quickly, not about West Virginia, but I took my daughter, son-in-law, and granddaughter. I live in Mesquite, Nevada, right outside of Las Vegas. And I took them to Great Basin National Park, which is almost 4 hours away from me in northern Nevada, but you actually drive through Utah to get there. As we're driving through Utah, we're on a major interstate, and then we have to cut and go west. So we're driving almost 2 hours on this very deserted highway. So I'm used to that. I'm a professional traveler. I go to rural America. My kids, however, had not ever been anywhere like this. When you see signs that say 89 miles to the next facilities, and a facility is, just a one-man owned gas station, they're not used to that. And so, whenever you find a restaurant that has like a real chef and has like a really complex menu and they've been to culinary school and all this sort of thing, it's just kind of baffling. And that happened to us in the town right outside. I can't even remember the name of it right now. I want to say Baker, but that might not be right. But the town that's right outside of Great Basin National Park has like a high-end convenience store, which would remind me of somewhere like in Fayetteville. And then they had a gas station. I'm going to use that word loosely. It had two pumps and a note that said, if you need help, call the mayor. Here's his phone number. Not even an attendant. But they did have a restaurant that had two chefs, two married women that had worked at high-end, like really bougie ski resorts in Vail and along the coast in California around Berkeley area. And so their resume was just fantastic. And this restaurant looked so wonderful. And I certainly did not expect, chefs of this magnitude to have a restaurant in this town. Unfortunately, I was there on a Wednesday and it was not open on that day. So I didn't get to experience. But I wanted to just allude, if you're listening to this and you're wondering, like, when we're talking about small towns or you don't expect that, that's kind of like what's behind that. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mhm.
Okay.
Mhm.
So I want to talk about, you didn't mention any breakfast food, and we're going to talk about that in just a minute, but I want to talk about my favorite breakfast food. I was just like so shocked by this. Barcotta's is a restaurant at Fort Hill in Charleston, which is kind of where I used to live. And nothing is really ever done very well in that location. I used to go get my hair cut there. There was a shop a minute, there's a pizza place or whatever. But Barcotta's is a really nice restaurant and they have a brunch. Have you been there, Angie, for the
I
Sunday?
have not. I've had a lot of friends go and they say it's really good, but I have not been.
Okay. So their meals are mostly like Filipino style and they're very like real bougie meals and everything. It's just a super fun place and they serve a lot of local beers. But I've been for breakfast a couple of times and my favorite dish is called flipped apostrophe AF. You can just figure out the rest of it. So anyway, flipped AF. It is a bowl. Picture this. Here's your bowl, and then you pick rice or there's some other base you can pick. Noodles, maybe. I always pick rice. So it's jasmine rice, it's either basmati or jasmine rice. I can't remember which. Maybe jasmine. And then it has a little side area of pork belly, of Spam, and I love Spam. And then carne norte, which is Filipino style corned beef. Then it's topped with a house-made queso that is to die for, and then an egg of your choice. It sounds kind of simple. It's anything but. Like, it's so complex, and like I don't normally eat pork belly because I don't like the fat of meats. It is just so good. The Spam's perfect. You can't go wrong. Take it out of the can, slice it, and fry it up. But the carne norte is just a game changer. So I took my dad once. I'd had this meal a couple of times, and I took my dad, who had been in the Philippines during the service, and he just like he knew like so many words on the menu and everything. And my dad is not a foodie by any stretch, but it was just really nice for him too because he hadn't tasted some of those flavors in a very long time. So I highly recommend that. So Angie, what's your top breakfast choice in West Virginia? I don't know this one.
You know what? I don't either, to be honest with you. I'm trying to think because I don't do breakfast a whole lot anymore.
Right.
And I'm having trouble thinking of where would be my favorite breakfast. But I will say and I think I mentioned it, I touched on it just a little bit when we were talking about the
Uh-huh.
Greenbrier. I remember having the French toast at the Greenbrier in the
Oh,
dining room, and
okay.
it was excellent.
And I
Um,
remember speaking of French toast, is it French toast that was so good at the Bavarian Inn years ago? It's been years since I had it.
I don't think I've ever had breakfast at the Bavarian Inn. I've only had dinner and
Okay.
lunch.
Well, we'll move on because usually when I pick Angie up, she has a protein drink or something healthy like that. And I have a Tudor's biscuit, some potatoes with cheese, a Diet Coke.
I have to limit my breakfast so that I can eat good for dinner.
Well, I need to limit all of those. Uh, but moving on, one of my favorite lunch places. This is the only time you're going to hear me say this because if anybody knows me at all, they know I am not a sandwich person. I don't want to eat with my hands. I do not want to get my hands like on buttery bread or just touching my food. There's just something about it that I just don't love. Put some chips and salsa in front of me and I'm going to shovel them in so fast you can't even, I don't even come up for air. But there's something about sandwiches that just doesn't appeal to me. However, Secret Sandwich Society in Fayetteville, again, made our 100 Things to Do in West Virginia book. Their sandwiches are just so unique, and a lot of them are named after presidents. They have like really unique combinations. So I love that. And then they have this pimento cheese dip that comes with fries. Again, fries is not something I'm typically going to order. I'm there for the dipping sauce, and the pimento cheese is the dipping sauce. And I think they call that crack dip, but oh my God, have you had that, Angie?
I haven't, no, but I've had several people say that they go there just for that pimento
Yes.
cheese dip.
Yes. Well, when I come to West Virginia next time, we need to be somewhere near Fayetteville so we can go to Secret Sandwich Society and have a sandwich together. So
All right, we'll do that.
that sounds very good. Okay, so I know we both love Italian food and we wrote about it extensively in our 100 Things to Do in West Virginia Before You Die book, but I personally sampled about 20 plates of spaghetti with meat sauce before picking the best for our book, which was Jim's Steak and Spaghetti House in Huntington. Totally surprised me, was not expecting that. Then we also had a second page that listed a whole bunch of other Italian restaurants you shouldn't miss. So Angie picked two Italian restaurants for us just talking about this podcast segment, and now I'm intrigued. First of all, she mentions Undo's in Benwood, and then she mentions Pasquale's. So Angie, tell us about Undo's.
Okay, so Undo's is a family-owned Italian restaurant from Wheeling area. To me, what sets them apart
Uh-huh.
is when you order your dinner, they bring out cheese bread. And
Ooh,
it's basically pizza crust with melted cheese on it. And that's your garlic
okay.
bread. But what sets it apart is they also bring out this little candle and a tin cup of butter. So as you're sitting there, this candle is melting the butter and you dip your bread
Oh,
in this butter. No other restaurant that I've been to in West Virginia does that. And that just takes it up so many levels. Because to me, when you go into a restaurant, in an Italian restaurant, you should smell garlic
oh yeah.
and there should be good bread.
And you just want bread, yeah.
You just want bread. So I could literally make a meal and they have an excellent house salad. So I could go in there, have a house salad and that little thing of bread and be happy as a clam.
That sounds wonderful.
Good manicotti. But my
Hmm.
favorite manicotti is Pasquale's in Beckley. I've had manicotti from every Italian restaurant because that's my favorite dinner is
Okay.
manicotti. But what I like about theirs is they really toast their cheese, and some of them will barely even melt the cheese on top of the manicotti.
Right.
So I think it's that extra level of just they bake that until the cheese is so crusty, and to me that's the perfect dish of manicotti.
That sounds
But
awesome.
we have some really good Italian restaurants in West Virginia.
Yes,
I
I
don't
would
I don't
agree.
want to leave off Oliverios from Bridgeport
Oh
or
yeah.
Skulls in Fairmont. Both of those are excellent. In fact, I was just at Oliverios a couple weeks ago.
That
Both
sounds
are
delicious.
excellent.
That
But
they have those meatballs with the ricotta cheese appetizer. Oh my God, that's amazing.
yes, and they have the breadsticks with the olive oil and the fresh red pepper flakes
Oh
in it.
yeah.
I mean, there you
Yeah.
go. The bread.
Well, I went to Undo's once. You recommended it, and I was in Wheeling to go to tour something and went to Undo's, and we liked it. I don't remember that much about it though. But Pasquale's, I did eat there when I was sampling my plates of spaghetti and everything. I don't think I'd ever been to Pasquale's before, and I really loved it. Spaghetti and meatballs is not ever going to be my choice because I can make that at home. But after eating so much of that in West Virginia, that's pretty much my go-to now. If I go to a restaurant, that's what I'm just going to eat. So many good ones around the state. So.
Yes.
Okay, so favorite desserts. You didn't mention any desserts, and that's usually not my favorite thing, but I'm going to talk about this. I did have one dessert in West Virginia not that long ago that was one of the top three of my life. Now, that's 55 years. For those who don't know, that's a lot of desserts. It's something so shocking because I don't like beets. There's only about three things I don't like, and I really don't like beets. I know how to make them. I've cooked them. I've been to cooking classes. I've eaten them in many different ways, every color of beets, pickled or not. But I just don't really like beets. They taste like dirt. And I know that's a thing. If you don't like beets, they just taste like dirt. But I was at 1010 Bridge, and my friends Marie and Aaron, again from Ellen's Ice Cream, they used to be part owners of this. They just sold their part out. But that's also Chef Paul, who just won the James Beard Award. That's his place. And 1010 Bridge is just so good. No matter what you get, it's just going to be great. And I love the food there. I haven't had one thing that wasn't, 10 out of 10. But this dessert was like 100 out of 10. And I'm looking at the list of desserts. Usually I don't order dessert because I don't want to be disappointed. But if I know I'm going to have a good dessert, okay, I'm probably going to try something. And I was trying out 1010 to write about it. So I'm looking at the list and I can't decide because there's like 8 desserts and I think they have a pastry chef and I love all of them. The bartender recommended this daily special, which was a beet cake. It was a chocolate cake, but it was made from beets. And it was kind of like one of those, like a chocolate lava cake kind of thing. That's what it looked like. And then it had like a vanilla sauce over it and then like a reduced sweetened beet sauce over it and a mint sprig, powdered sugar and everything. I'm telling you, it was so good. I considered licking the plate. It was one of the
Wow.
top 3 desserts of my entire life in Charleston, West Virginia. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that because that was the special of the day. That should be on the menu all the time just because it's so unique and everything like that. But what is a dessert in West Virginia that has just wowed you?
I don't typically get dessert either because I'm usually full from my filet and whipped potatoes. But I thought about this when we started talking about our list of foods, and I kept thinking, I just can't think of any restaurant that I go there just for
Right.
dessert. But I do remember you and I were at the Tamarack because creme
Oh yeah.
brulee is one of my favorite desserts
Yep.
because that's something that it's just like ice cream. You're never too full for ice cream. Creme brulee, I'm never too full for creme brulee.
Yep.
We had creme brulee at Tamarack
Yep.
that had Grand Marnier in it. Oh my gosh, it was so good. That was probably one of the best creme brulees I've had.
Yeah, that was a
Um,
really good one.
so good. And I'm not good with desserts, and I think it's with breakfast too. I'd rather make my homemade breakfast at
Right.
home if I'm going to eat it. Maybe that's where I am with breakfast, but that creme brulee at Tamarack was delicious. And
Mhm.
Italian cream cake is one of my favorites.
Oh
And
yeah.
I did purposely go to Jerry West restaurant in Greenbrier,
Uh-huh.
which is called Prime 44, just for the Italian cream cake for
Was it
dessert
worth
one
it?
night. And it was, oh my gosh.
Wonderful.
That's one that has stuck out in my memory. Like that was one of the best Italian cream cakes I've ever had.
Well, that's awesome. Well,
Yeah.
and I'm going to follow up with that because next we're getting ready to talk about, and we only have just a couple minutes left, so I'm going to wrap this up. But we're talking about gone but not forgotten. And so I'm going to start with talking. Well, I'm going to save Cafe Semino for last because that one I think deserves the biggest hurrah. So some places that were around West Virginia that are no longer there. Chi-Chi's, which we know that was a chain, but everybody loved it. I just had a social post that people were just going crazy remembering over this week. Mama Gerald's, it might have been called something else. I think it was called Country.
Country Road Inn.
Yes, that one was delicious. River's Edge, remember the great complimentary
Mm-hmm.
cabbage soup and hush puppies
The
that were
fritters.
served at
Yep.
River's Edge in St. Albans. Chili Willie's was in Huntington. My family
Mm-hmm.
and just me and friends, we used to drive to Chili Willie's to have Mexican hot chocolate, have their queso, chimichangas. I mean, we would do that at least once a month. Chili Willie's was the real deal. It was just so fun.
Yeah, it was good.
And then, like for me, we loved Chef Dan's, which was on Summer Street across from where the Clay Center is now. We used to eat at Chef Dan's all the time because the girls could find something they liked there. And they had this pasta dish called Helen's Hairdo that was just to die for. But anyway, I love that one. And the reason I was mentioning is this because Chef Dan's had a fantastic Italian cream cake. And it was made by somebody externally who also made that cake for many different places around, I guess probably, just the state or a local area or whatever. But oh my God, it was good. So I'm with you on that Italian cream cake. Okay, and so Cafe Semino. Cafe Semino was a legendary restaurant in Sutton. The owners sold to kind of, they had such a miraculous business, and I think they just, were getting tired, wanted to retire, and they still have a business and a presence in the food scene in West Virginia. But Cafe Semino, you could go there and spend the night, and you just go there for a meal. I remember like friends that would come from West Hollywood to visit or Los Angeles, and we would take them there and they were like, I cannot believe this is in West Virginia. And we're going back, 20 years ago. We used to go, I've been out of West Virginia for 15 years. From 15 to 25 years ago, we used to go to Cafe Semino on the regular. And the pasta dishes were great. The charcuterie platter was amazing. Long before you got a charcuterie platter at every menu in every town in America, that's just a hodgepodge of nothing. Doesn't even really fit the charcuterie mold. Cafe Semino was just fantastic. And then they got even fancier and they had the little riverside or creekside wine restaurant and all that sort of thing. But do you have any experience from any of those restaurants I've mentioned that you'd like to walk down memory lane?
Sure. Mama Gerald's is a place that we used to go for family celebrations, birthdays, things like that. And what was funny is I went there as a kid with my grandparents, and you and I were in the car driving one day, and you mentioned it, and I went, I used to go there too. So it was funny that we individually went there with our families.
Was it Summersville? Is that where it was?
It was in Zella. I think it's Zella. Okay. It's on that road towards Summersville.
Okay.
But I would go with my dad's family, and my grandmother loved it. So she would come home and try to recreate. She loved their marinated mushrooms, so she would try to recreate that and different things. So that little restaurant held lots of good memories for me because that's where my grandparents would like to go. Yeah, River's Edge. We liked River's Edge, Chili Willie's. We liked those too, but good memories.
Absolutely. And so one thing I wanted to mention, Mama Gerald's used to give you all those little jars of things to sample. I am still such a stickler for a complimentary anything. Like when somebody just gives you something for coming into the restaurant and you don't do anything, we just kind of take it for granted, but that's a big reach to just give you something for just walking in the door. And so those little things really mean a lot to me. That really ups a restaurant's ante in my book. If there's something complimentary that they've gone that
yeah, it goes that extra mile of customer service and just that personal touch to me, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I'm now really hungry, and I'm in a little town in America which doesn't have anything much unless I cook it or go to the casino and smell like smoke. So anyway, thanks for leaving me with that. But I hope you have a great day, and thank you so much for joining me on episode 12 of 100 Things West Virginia podcast. I hope you have a great fall season, and I'm hoping to see you in early winter.
I look forward to it.
Okay. Thanks so much, Ange.
Bye.
Bye. I so appreciate Angie joining me in this episode. I know it's hard for her to take time off of her job, and I greatly appreciate it. Plus, we have a 3-hour time difference between where we live. For the next episode, we're going to be diving into the best holiday events around the Mountain State. I'm going to share with you a few of the top events that have crossed my radar, things I'm interested in seeing and doing, and maybe things that you can offer as a gift in lieu of a gift. Take a friend or a family member or your significant other to do one of these things in lieu of buying a gift, a store-bought gift. How cool is that? Thanks so much for joining us. I really appreciate it. I know you could spend your time doing a million other things, but anyway, I'm so grateful that you are here. If you would subscribe, rate, review the podcast, I would so appreciate it. It means so much. If you're interested in getting out in the state of West Virginia and learning more, please refer to our book, 100 Things to Do in West Virginia Before You Die. And you can contact me if you would like to get a copy. I can drop you one in the mail. Thanks so much.